depending on the stress given responses to our attractions and aversions. Actually, the chemical cascade or domino effect are perfectly identified from the axis psycho-neuro-endocrine immune system. And pay attention. I want to introduce 3 new neurotransmitters. First, it was discovered by Dr. Chimani. We don't use acetylcholine anymore. We use spiritualcholine. We don't use cortisol anymore. We use shantisol, please. We don't use nephrine anymore. We use Gayatri frame. The nature of likes and dislikes is this, that they create new ones to take their place. Likes and dislikes cannot be exhausted by fulfilling them. The internal rest over time becomes a chronic condition, so that the peculiar mental state is characterized by the inadequate feelings like disaffection, frustration, panic attack, depression, fear, etc. Both likes and dislikes behave as obstacles on the spiritual path and psychological emotional behavior. They will be able to trigger out imbalances and diseases at body level. From this point of view, Ayurveda is considering either like or dislike as mental impurity, or also called manas. Ayurveda describes the 7 body tissues. Each one has its specific functions, its secondary tissues or upadhatus, so that we can consider the mind as a tissue, where likes and dislikes or ragadveshas will be the waste materials or malas. As well as Ayurveda prescribes detoxification treatments to clean the 7 tissues, we can prescribe the purification procedures through which the impurities or ama, toxins, from mental tissue in the form of likes and dislikes are neutralized. This mentioned procedure is called in Vedanta Antakarana Shuddhi, the purification of the internal organ of the mind, which contain manas, buddhi, chittam, and ahankara. These different types of responses become specific secretion of substances, neurotransmitters, and hormones, so that we imbalance, and these imbalances lead to suffering and over time to certain diseases. We know that stress harms the immune system, from the limbic brain, the emotional brain, through the link with autonomic nervous system and endocrine system. Another mental principle that could be considered an impurity or mala is also the external ego or ahankara. The ego is representing the earth, Prithvi, element in the dynamics of creation. Ahankara means the notion of self. Aham means I. Kara means notion. It generates the identification process of the person with the objects. It is considered the factor that causes the consciousness to be fragmented. when it is only identified with external objects in order to consider itself as a doer, or karta. The ahankar named two different states, as a notional or as a functional state. The purification process of the mind, or antakarana shuddhi, should also reach the ahankara, when the outer self is identified only with the objective world and control our mind as the karta or doer, is a source of stress and sufferings as well as the likes and dislikes. All malas or waste materials lodge in the minds, and ego, ahankara, constitute the self-ignorance, avidya. The ancient sages of Ayurveda called it the error in the intellect or buddhi, pragya aparada. In Vedanta, we have studied it as avidya. Then we could conclude that the first and only disease is self-ignorance, or avidya, which keeps away me from our true essence expressed in Mahavakya, Sat, Chit, Ananda, existence, awareness, and fulfillment, or Ananda, with the addition that these principles are unlimited. They are not limited by the gunas or the great five elements, Pancha Mahabhutas, or the sense, etc. Self-ignorance of self-confusion is the first disease and denies the true essence or unlimited happiness, Ananda, of human beings, our real nature. If there is a single source for human disease, there must be a single remedy for all of them. And this is knowledge of our true self. The knowledge of the order of Ishvara is the most purifying procedure of the mind. This purification is to be in touch with simple reality, so that it is to be within a psychological order. The distortion of reality or distorted perception of the reality lead to confusion and ignorance of ourselves and leads us to be out of reality. Ishvara is the super therapist. Therefore, brings an understanding. The order of Ishvara is the deepest psychotherapy. I want to emphasize how the emotional, psychological, and spiritual level participate in both disease process and healing process. Modern medicine takes into account only a part of man, the objective one. Regardless of subjective one, a part of a man which cannot be objectified. This point of view of a man, and therefore the treatment will be prescribed, will be partial and incomplete. On the other hand, holistic medicine, including especially Ayurveda, are not limited to prescribe some remedies in a recipe. They provide a comprehensive and complete treatment program. This takes into account the patient as a subject, so that Ayurveda is a completed and integrated vision. The first way to approach health, therefore modern medicine, is called Aparavidya in Vedanta. And the second one is called Paravidya, the whole vision of the man. We must not forget that one of the four Purusharthas or purposes, which is the most important one, is moksha. The other three ones are Kama, is the principle of pleasure. Artha is the principle of security. Dharma is the righteousness. All of them are taken by Ayurveda as goals in a complete span of life and objectives of healing for whole person. The highest goal and most complete healing is to achieve moksha, the liberation from self-ignorance and self-confusion. This is accomplished through the process of understanding of Ishvara and the relation of identity between Atman and Brahman. The created principle of pure consciousness is either outside or inside of the human being. So there is nothing that exists in the universe outside of that consciousness or principle created. Vedanta says the concept of God or moksha is not to believe in, is to be understood. Thank you. Shanti.
Many thanks, Professor Loria. And I would like you to ask if anyone has a question in mind. He can very well ask that. Any questions? Thank you very much. So, many thanks to Professor Loria and the talk he made about stress being the cause of diseases and how he actually said that Indian sciences, he linked it with Indian sciences, and he has basically laid the view that Indology is going to become globology in the near future. So, without wasting any further time, I would like to invite Dr. Alice Paulo and give her views on the occasion.